Wait for the gongs to finish now. Okay, good evening. Welcome to this meeting of Petitions and Representations Board. I'll just go through the preliminaries anyway. Members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on and speak directly into the microphone and switch off again after speaking. Attendees joining via Teams, please switch cameras and microphones on when speaking and off when finished. Use the hands up icon in Teams to indicate a question or comment for the chair to invite you to speak. The meeting this evening will be live streamed to the public, and a recording of the meeting will be available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Switch off mobile phones or put on silent mode. If you need to use your mobile during the meeting, please leave the chamber and return when finished.
How do I mute? Okay.
Okay, so can you switch your microphone off, please? Are you come to speak? Can you hear me? It's muted. All right. Okay, so we'll go on to the agenda proper now. Apologies for absence. Councillor Hazel Simmons, I understand. Give her apologies.
Yes, Chair, just Councillor Simmons.
Minutes of the 18th of January, the 21st of May. You okay with those? Right, I've got to sign them later. Item 3, Section 106, Local Government Finance Act. Any disclosures? Any disclosures of interest tonight? Javed?
So, excuse me, my interest is on portfolio holder for highways. So both of these two items could come to me potentially on appeal. So I will refrain from voting on these two items.
Very thank you. There's no urgent business I'm aware of, so we'll go straight on to the agenda proper. Can I just clarify the person online? Are they speaking? And which item?
Chair, that's Michael Andrews, and they're speaking to the first item.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. And when I ask you to speak, can you put your microphone on? Okay.
Yes, okay.
The first item on the agenda is petition to remove a disabled bay on Ditchling Close, Luton. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. As outlined, this is to discuss next steps with regards to a disabled person's parking bay that's been installed on Ditchling Close with a request to remove it. The background to this is the residents state that a disabled person's parking bay has been installed for a resident on Ditchling Close. The petitioners state that the resident has applied for the bay, does not use it and parks elsewhere on the close, taking up additional parking, and that the bay is seldom used and removes a parking space on a close that has already limited parking provision. The petitioners would like to see the bay removed so an additional parking space for anyone rather than just blue badge holders can be established. The reason behind the bay, just a bit of background, the Equalities Act 2010 states that local authorities have to make reasonable adjustments for disabled people and to provide them equal opportunities and access to services. The council does have an applications process for disabled bays. This disabled bay did follow through that process. As part of it, there is a criteria. Now, we'll go through the criteria. It's a little bit lengthy, but it's just to give a full flavour of what's been looked at as part of this decision to go in the first place. So firstly, the applicant's home should not have a garage or a suitable drive or opportunity to provide off-street parking, for example, through a front garden or sufficient depth of conversion for provision of a vehicle crossover. Where there are planning objections to such off-street parking, the cost of the work provided should not be above £1,000. That's inclusive of the cost of the drop crossover. Parking in the demand street is so severe that within 50 metres of the applicant's address cannot be found most days. The example, occasional short-lived invasions by patrons of places of public would normally qualify. And finally, a parking bay will only be provided where, in the opinion of the Highway Authority and the police, the location is suitable and road safety on grounds of road safety and traffic flows. It is generally assumed these sites will be within an area covered by either a 20 or 30 mile per hour zone and is with a system of street lighting. The application was received in May of 2023. As part of the statutory process, we are required to advertise that in the local newspapers, which was done so on the 6th of December, then again on the 20th of December. During these periods of advertisement, people are allowed to write in and object. There were no formal objections received in relation to this. We also placed a notice up on the lighting column number 7 on Ditchling Close. Letters were sent to properties advising them of the proposals that were put in place. Again, as no objections were received, the bay was sealed and installed. There was a little bit of a delay between it being advertised in December and it being installed in February. This is owing to the time of year. Unfortunately, line marking can't be carried out when there is freezing or extremely wet conditions, which obviously at winter time is what happened, and hence the delay in doing so. It is important to note that the blue badge, the disabled bay is open to anybody with a blue badge. It's not allocated to a specific householder or applicant. Although the person that applied for it has use of it, anybody with a blue badge can park on that bay. Removing the bay may restrict access for disabled blue badge holders on Ditchling Close. The proposal options are to keep the disabled person's parking bay, to continue provide disabled parking provisions on Ditchling Close for anybody that has a blue badge, or to remove the bay and reduce the disabled parking bay provisions on Ditchling Close. The recommendation is that the bay remain.
Sorry, I'll take any questions by members first, and then I'll bring in other representatives. Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Can I confirm that the bay is currently painted where it should have been originally, and it was put in a different bay, and that's what the problem is currently? The lady that requested it doesn't want to move the extra 4 or 5 feet to use the bay where it currently is, and that the bay, when it was put in right at the bottom of Ditchling Close, and effectively, because the rear doors of the applicant's vehicle need a wide or length, it took up nearly 2 other spaces, and the residents contacted myself and my colleague Claire Gallagher, saying that they didn't object to the parking bay per se, because their understanding was it was going to be marked up at the top of the 5 bays and not where it was put in. Can you confirm that where it is currently is where it should have been put in the first place?
All right. Yeah, I can answer that question. Absolutely. So as part of the bays being marked in, to form part of the legal order they go in, they're put on our park map plans, as well as the details saying there'll be X number of meters from property number boundary and so on and so forth. It's been installed as per the legal order, so we've not put it in anywhere other than where it was advertised.
Follow up on that. On the day it was originally put in, my understanding is that the lady in question spoke to the contractors and asked them to put it down right at the bottom of the bays, and that's where all the problem has begun. She doesn't want parking bay if it's put where it currently is. She wants it right at the bottom because that's where she's always parked, and that is where the problem is. She's not going to use the bay because it's not where she wants it. And while I have no problem with parking bay staying, if the cost of moving it or taking it out is to be considered, it should be at the cost to the contractors, who should never have taken any notice of her in the first place and painted it where they were told to paint it. Otherwise, myself and Councillor Gallagher wouldn't have had to get involved and get it moved to where it currently is, because if it was that, it wouldn't have been moved if it had been in the right place in the first place, and I don't think it was ever put in. So this is an issue with the contractors not following the rules, because they put it in at the bottom of the set of bays and not at the top, because when we asked for it to be moved to the top, there was no issue, no problem, and it was moved. And that's why she won't use the bay. So if it were to be removed, then the cost of doing so should be falling on the person who asked for the bay and now doesn't want it, and the contractors who took notice of a member of the public and didn't follow the instructions they had, which was to paint it at the top.
Okay, now none of this is mentioned on the petition. In reality, the petition's about removal of the bay. Now, I am aware there was some contention surrounding the installation of the bay at the time. Our contractors were approached. The reality is our contractors have installed the bay as per the legal order. If they were approached by a member of the public and asked to move it from one location to another, they simply can't do that with the bay remaining enforceable, because the nature of the order is quite specific in where the bay is situated and how it can be enforced. So if they've installed it not in line with the TRO, then they wouldn't be able to enforce it. Now, I've not been told it's been installed in the incorrect place. I've been told they want it removed. I had some back and forth with the councillor surrounding this at the time, and was assured to the council at the time that the contractor installed it as per the legal order and as instructed. So there's not any, as far as I'm concerned, confusion as to whether the contractor has installed it in line with the instruction, because it's been done in line with the traffic regulation order that was advertised. The council has the ability to alter things marginally on site when we're installing things, but we're talking, I think it's within 10% of what the legal order states. So under 10 metre bay, you're talking a metre at most, that we could move a bay potentially in length or width of where it's being installed. But as stated, as far as I'm aware, the bay's been installed in line with the TRO.
Well, that's the whole point. There are only 5 parking bays in that section. Councillor Gallagher and I contacted Highways and asked if the bay had been installed in the right place on those bays. There are, if you look at the road, Ditchling Coast comes down to effectively a dead end. There are houses all along there. Right at the bottom of that, there are 5 parking bays facing that way.
Order that was installed, I did discuss this at length with Councillor Gallagher before raising the TRO to go in place about where it should go. It was sort of a fairly reasonable, basically where we put the TRO and where the bay was installed was in agreement with Councillor Gallagher after sort of a back and forth email discussion with her.
Yeah. So that's,
I'm satisfied that where we've installed the bay is where we agreed with Councillor Gallagher and where is in line with the traffic regulation order.
That's and where it is was fine, except that the lady that wanted it originally came out on the day they first painted it and had the bay. They were about to start painting it where it currently is, i.e., if you say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th one is the top. The parking bay spread comes out as you come down the hill from Ditchling Post. It spreads out, and it's now at what I call the top one because it's nearest the top of the hill. It's but when we went to view where it had actually originally been painted, it was in bay 1. And that's what the problem is. It was moved to bay 5.
I'm saying our contractor wouldn't have moved. Well, as far as I'm aware, and I'll have to go and investigate this. This is different to what the petition was suggesting, to be fair. What you're asserting is that we've installed a bay in an incorrect place to the TRO. The contractor has rather. Now, if this isn't the case, if this is the case, then absolutely we can go down and rectify that quite quickly, because what we're basically saying is we've put a disabled bay not in line with the traffic regulation order.
No, originally.
Well, hang on. If we have put the traffic regulation order through, advertised as agreed with Councillor Gallagher, and it's been installed as was part of that TRO advertisement, then the bay is in the correct place. There's no question as to whether we have or haven't put it in that place, because it's in line with the traffic regulation order. What we're here to discuss tonight, from my understanding, is whether that bay remain at this stage.
Yeah, and the reason for the petitioners wanting it now removed altogether is because it has now been placed where it was originally supposed to be when you spoke to Councillor Gallagher and the TRO. And the lady who had applied for it doesn't actually want to move the extra 3 or 4 spaces up the footpath and use that bay. So it's now no longer being used, and therefore is a space which is available for other blue badge holders, and I personally do not have a problem with that. But what the petitioners are saying is they have a disabled bay put in for a disabled person who is no longer using it, and they therefore now have a space that they previously had that they no longer have the ability to use.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that. I mean, it sounds fairly easy resolvable from my eye. If the person that applied for it originally is sort of said to you informally that they're not in favour of it remaining, they'd like to see it gone, they can simply write to us. We can make those changes. It's, I guess, in a scenario not too dissimilar, although it is somewhat. We're not in the habit of, you know, putting in disabled bays at women and taking them away. There are circumstances perhaps where if someone has applied for a disabled bay and then unfortunately passed away, the disabled bay has been parked in, then the disabled bay can be removed from the street. However, if the councillors see fit this evening that the petition's upheld and the lady wants to, the petitioner or the person that wants to get this disabled bay removed, then it's something that can be considered. I guess that's a third option that's not currently within the petition, but I'm happy to consider.
I'm not advocating
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Hold on, can we have Councillor Martin speak now? And then we'll come to a decision.
Thank you. I'm now somewhat confused, to be fair. So whoever, the person that I think Alan referred it to as a she, so the lady that requested that the disabled bay to be installed, has she been contacted about any of this at all by anybody at Luton Borough Council for her input?
If the person who wanted a disabled bay isn't parking in that particular space that's been reserved as a disabled bay, then it seems obvious to me that it's in the wrong place if they're parking elsewhere.
My question would be, if they're not using the bay that was allocated to them, where are they parking? And are they parking in the same spot every evening for ease of access into their vehicle? It seems somewhat confusing, to be fair. I would have thought that the resident in question could have been or should have been contacted for their input in terms of this decision, rather than just removing the bay. Because if you're a blue badge holder and you suffer a disability to get in and out of your vehicle or towards your house, surely there should be some input from that individual. But I'm still confused. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
If I could just add to that, they weren't contacted as part of this petition. It's not something I've done. However, as part of the application process, they would have been made aware of where the bay was going to be installed. So they would have we would have sort of written back to them and said, your bay has been granted and this is where we're going to install it. So as far as they've had input into relation to where it is, then yes, they've been made aware prior to it going in and being advertised as to where it was going to be installed on the highway.
Okay.
It's not something we normally, we don't ask agreement to. Obviously, there are other constraints we have to consider when we're installing disabled bays. It's in relation to what's available in parking, what widths are available, what's length and stuff. So we wouldn't necessarily write to them and say, are you in agreement with this is what we're going to do? We'll write to them and say, this is what we're going to do and this is where we're going to do it. If they have objections, they can then come back to us. But as far as I'm aware, we didn't have any objections to that at all.
Can I bring in now the representative, one of the petitioners? Did you? Oh, hold on. Oh, yeah. Councillor Ahmed.
Sorry, just one question. Thank you, Chair. It's just I know that it says the removal will cost £4,000, but is there a possibility to reassign or relocate the disabled parking bay to a more suitable location within the close?
Without looking at the layout of the close, I can't promise that. I suggest we can relocate it, but there will still be a cost associated with it. The costs associated with it are the altering of the traffic regulation order, effectively. That all has to go be redrafted. The original one has to be revoked. A new one has to be drafted and drawn up and advertised, consulted on, then has to be remarked. So that's, I mean, the line marking itself is sort of pennies really as part of the whole process. The real cost of it is the traffic regulation order side of it, which is the drafting and the advertising.
Thank you.
Okay. Francis.
Sorry, just quickly, how close is the bay
to the resident at number 26?
I'm afraid off the top of my head, I don't know. It's not something I've looked into, to be fair.
You want to come in now? You're one of the petitioners, are you?
Yes, I'm the lead petitioner, Chair. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We are only asking for the bay to be removed as the resident at number 26 who requested it is refusing to use it. The disabled bay was installed on the 19th of February in the wrong place. It was put outside numbers 30 and 32. It was subsequently relocated on the 15th of April following representations from Councillor Gallagher as email concerns that the residents had sent to the council had been ignored, and the residents at number 30 and 32 had not been consulted at any stage as it was right outside our front door. All the residents impacted by this have signed the petition. None are blue badge holders, so the disabled bay remains empty while residents are double parking around it. The bay is situated at the end of a block of 5 parking spaces, which run along the garden of number 18 and across the front of numbers 30 and 32. There are 7 on-road parking spaces, one of which is the disabled bay, and when all the residents are at home, we have 14 vehicles to try to fit in. Since the bay has been relocated, the resident from number 26 has not used the bay at all and has said on more than one occasion she will not use it. She has said that she now uses taxis and lifts when she goes out, and we subsequently found out on the 19th of June that she's put her house up for sale. It's now sold and subject to contract, and so she will be moving away from Ditchling Close. There is no other need for a disabled parking space here. I mean, Ditchling Close by its definition is a residential close. Apart from summary school drop-off and pick-up influx, we only get residents or visitors parking here. There are no shops close by that would warrant somebody else parking here. I'm not sure why the council would say that every street, road or close should have a disabled parking bay when there is no local need for it. We could understand if there were shops around here and people were frequently visiting, but not when it is just for the residents or their visitors. We didn't quite understand how Mr. Barnett arrived at £4,000 to remove the bay, because there's just 11 2-foot-long white lines and the disabled word to burn off. And we had a verbal quote of £500 from a contractor who deals with line painting to remove the markings. So in summing up, I mean, the resident from number 26 refuses to make use of the disabled parking bay and is now moving away. There is no local resident's need for a disabled bay, so the space remains empty, causing congestion and frustration among the residents. So we would ask for it to be removed, especially now, as I think the council policy would be that if an applicant requests it for it to be removed or moves away, then the bay can be removed. Thank you.
Yes, that's normally what happens. Mark, is there any way that this bay can be suspended? Is there any way this bay could be suspended?
Yeah, it's just a matter of putting some boards up by parking enforcement, and there's no order of process required. It's just boards on site erected saying that the bay will be suspended between X date and X date.
Is that a route that everyone wants to take? Until such times as if it's, I mean, no guarantee that the resident of 26 will move, but if they do move, then there's no need for the disabled bay. And previously that they've been removed when it's not been required.
The only thing I'll need to check with our enforcement team is how that suspension operates. So yes, it can be suspended. I don't know if suspended means if anyone parks in there, with it being suspended, they're potentially could get a ticket for parking in a suspended bay, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's the offence. That's something I need to clarify. If we're talking about the quickest, easiest way for me to do it in reality is the bay's not enforceable with a sign plate missing. So if needs be, we can arrange for the contractor to remove a sign plate, tomorrow, and that would do away with the legality of it effectively.
Yeah, because it's fairly obvious to me that the disabled bay for the resident of number 26 is not using it. It's obviously in the wrong place. I'm not familiar with this area, but I will look at it and try and see the problem. But
I would say there's two sort of avenues I'm kind of thinking down here, Chair. One is perhaps a site visit with the councillor would perhaps clear some of these things up. Respectfully, we're only hearing one side of the minute now. We've had a lot of people in the room saying that this person's been in touch, so they don't want the bay, but they're not actually here, or I've had no official sort of correspondence from them indicating they don't want that. So, whereas I'm not stating that that's untrue, I'd like to see something more sort of substantial evidentially before I went down that road of they don't want that and we'll get rid of it.
okay, Francis.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think without any information in this report from the resident of number 26 who requested it, we're not in a position really to make a decision. With due respect to the petitioner, it's only hearsay that the resident is moving. So I just don't think we've got enough information to make a decision.
Are you suggesting we should defer this one?
Yeah.
It seems sensible. I don't think we're going to resolve it tonight, but we'll do further investigation to see how we can resolve the situation. Okay, is that agreed? It's deferred until a future meeting, and then we'll make a decision. Okay. Yes. Speak, please.
I just wanted to say that the bay doesn't have a plate as such. The only way that it is currently shown as a disabled bay is the white markings on the road. That's just what. And the second point is that on the estate agent's website, the house is advertised and it shows as sold subject to contract. So it isn't me just saying it. It is sold subject to contract on the P&R Property Services website.
Yeah, my understanding is that it hasn't got the time on there, so it's not actually a legal disabled parking bay yet. I think if you liaise with parking, so it's not enforced, and they put it on the list as not to be enforced until we reconvene at a future meeting and decide what we're going to do about it. Okay, so it's caused a lot of confusion tonight, and there's obvious reason why a disabled person is not using a disabled bay. I think that's one we got to resolve. But and if they do move, then the situation has resolved itself. Okay, you all agree we defer this to a future meeting? All right, thank you very much. Next one is traffic calming in Durham Road. Mark.
Hopefully this one will be slightly less confusing. This one's a little bit more straightforward. Residents state that vehicles travel regularly along Durham Road in excess speed of the speed limit. They're concerned about the risk to pedestrians and property as a result of the speeding vehicles. As you're aware, the council has the ability to undertake speed surveys on roads on its network. We did so on Durham Road back in April. The speed survey was conducted for a period of 7 days, 24 hours a day during that period. The 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at which 85% of the traffic is travelling at or below, was found to be 23.4 miles per hour. This is just under what we considered the prosecutable speed limit of 10% plus 2 of 20 miles per hour. So there is scope to evidence that there is I would say a minor speeding problem, to be fair. I've had a look at the collision record. There was one serious collision involving a young person who'd stepped out between two parked vehicles and was struck by a vehicle. Now, the accident was ruled, or the collision rather, was ruled as someone not paying attention when crossing the road. However, speed was marked down as a contributory factor in the officer's opinion that dealt with that accident. Having reviewed the fact that there was a serious collision there not too long ago, and there are speeds that are in excess of the speed limit and close to the sort of prosecutable limit, it's recommended at this stage that the council prioritises some form of traffic calming measures on Durham Road to be installed as part of the council's 5-year programme for local safety schemes. The alternative is, of course, that we continue to monitor the site and prioritise it according to other areas on the network.
Okay, members, yeah, Councillor Ahmed.
Sorry, as you mentioned, there is funding is required for installation of measures. What is the estimated cost of installing road humps or other road calming measures on this road?
I haven't looked at any great detail, but I suspect your average speed hump is probably around between £5,000 and £8,000 per hump. Top of my head, Durham Road's probably a couple of 100 meters long, so you're probably talking 3 or 4 of those. So yeah, probably looking, let's say 8 times 4 worst case scenario.
How does the council coordinate with the local schools such as Wenlock Academy to address road safety concerns raised by pupils, parents and teachers?
Yeah, we have a road safety education team that goes into schools on the regular. We give talks on what I would call the green cost code, but it's probably been modernised a little bit in this day and age. We have junior road safety officers that are empowered to work with their peers to encourage them to watch what they're doing with regards to road safety. We train them up with regards to crossing the road, working with school cross patrols, things like that. We encourage them to get their parents involved as well. We work with the schools in relation to parking and traffic issues outside the schools. Most schools are in the habit of sending out a newsletter. I would have thought a minimum once a month, some more regularly. As a frequent addition to that newsletter, they often try and encourage parents to walk to school or avoid driving and parking inconsiderately outside the school and driving appropriately, and be aware of the fact that they are dropping off vulnerable people that perhaps aren't as switched on with road sensors as you or I might be.
Are there specific measures that can be implemented near schools to enhance safety for children?
Yeah, that's part of the Safety Around Schools project, but I don't think this Durham Road, there's no schools on that road. They're further down Beaconsfield, aren't they, if I remember rightly? About two blocks away.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair, yes.
Yeah. Any further questions, members? Francis?
I think if the proposal here in front of us is to agree when budget allows, I think we could all be in agreement. If you think that's appropriate, Chair.
Petitioner, do you want to speak? One of you can speak.
Okay, so my name's Kerry. I've lived on Durham Road for the last 14 years. The traffic and the speeding down our road has been pretty bad lately. We've got double parked cars on both sides of the road. And as you mentioned, there's schools 2 roads away. So we have lots of school children around. And obviously we are quite concerned about all of the speeding that's been going on. The road opposite our road has got speed bumps on, which is a longer piece of road, but our road hasn't got them on, and we're just quite concerned really that there is quite a lot. I know the average was 23.4 miles per hour, but where the road markings, where the information was taken from was outside the shops and outside the junction where they were measuring the speed, which people need to slow down to get to that junction. If it was at the other end of the road, you probably would have got a different measurement, I would say, because they do fly down our road. And as I say, because the schools are there. We've also got petitions signed from we've got some posters signed by school children asking for this to be put in place as well. So we just feel that it will be beneficial for the safety of everybody around our area. I think that's it, unless you've got any questions.
Okay, yeah. Mark, you want to respond to that?
Absolutely no argument from me, to be fair. My primary role is to improve the safety on Luton's network. We work with residents, the schools, the police, councillors in relation to doing that. You've brought it to our attention. We've listened, we've carried out the survey, and I'm in agreement with you that there is scope to do some improvements on there to try and reduce those speeds and improve the safety. It's just subject to sort of budgets and prioritising. Just to sort of open up on that a little bit, there are a number of roads in the town where we have speeding issues that potentially are worse than what have been demonstrated on Durham Road. Equally, there are other roads in the town that have a worse collision history at the minute, which will be obviously prioritised higher. We only have a limited budget each year to resolve these issues. So I'm not going to promise it's definitely not going to be done this year because obviously our budget's already been decided. It's unlikely to be done as part of next year's financial programme, but we have a 5-year programme committed to that, and it will feature somewhere within the next 5 years on that programme when we prioritise it against other roads in the town with the sort of similar or worse issues.
I look at the figures, and you've got one collision in a 5-year period. Isn't going to appear on anybody's radar. But that's not to say that there is some speeding that goes on there. We've got a stupid system where the more kids that get thrown through the air in collisions, then that prompts action to be taken. Surely we can take action before anything like that happens, but it's where we are. The more people are injured and killed, then the more likely you are of getting road safety measures. I personally, as a pedestrian, have a problem with these electric scooters, electric bikes that are more hazardous to me than cars ever would be.
Yeah, just in response to that, I agree. It does primarily come down, unfortunately, to funding. With more funding, we'd be able to be more proactive. But obviously, we've got to cut off accordingly, which is why, unfortunately, those roads with a higher collision rate obviously raise themselves a priority. If it's up to me, I'd spend all my money, being as proactive as I could be. But we've got to be pragmatic when we're programming our works.
So, I was as a ward councillor, Terry. Yeah, go on. I'll let you say you're a ward councillor. It is your patch, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's your patch, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, I'll allow you to speak then. As ward councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak and attend. I'm basically here just to support this petition. Durham Road is a very difficult road to manoeuvre at the best of times. Cars park both sides, as you say, and traffic does speed up and down there quite quickly. It is in a 20-mile-an-hour area, but once again, these areas are no good if there's nobody there to monitor them or look after them. I'm basically saying I do support this petition. I ask the committee to look on this favourably. What I would ask is, can we, as I asked for this 2 years ago, originally, can we not bring it forward a bit out of the 5-year plan into about 3-year? I'll leave that to you.
It is pending budgets. You did ask for it some time ago. As you're aware, we've got a large backlog within the town with regards to undertaking these measures. Just to sort of give some people a bit of history in relation to that, there are 5 devices that cover the whole of the town. We have to put them up for a period of a week at a time. So obviously, there's a week where they go out on site, then we have a week where they're brought back in, the data's gathered back off them, and they go back on site. So they go out effectively twice a month on 5 roads. We only deploy them in term time, and not outside in school holidays. This is owing to the fact that traffic flows in school holidays are normally substantially lower. Road speeds generally could be quite a bit lower. It can give a bit of a skewed sort of example and evidence of what's going on a road. So we try and get the most accurate picture we can. So with all that in mind, unfortunately, to get all this data gathered, it does take a substantial amount of time. It comes again down to funding. If I had more funding, could buy more devices, put them out more regularly, and that sort of thing.
And you've also got sitting on my left here the executive member for highways, who's listened to everything that we're saying. Although he doesn't particularly want to comment, no. Bias, but I don't think anybody disagrees that there shouldn't be traffic calming on Durham Road, but it's a question of priorities. So it will go in the programme. Okay.
Jeff, just if you want. So I'll just add to the point that I think I'm happy to have it to come on the programme and we can look at it. But also bear in mind when you've just said, Mark, term time, when the roads are less traffic, when at school times there's a lot of traffic, people are forced to slow. When there isn't, and late at night, I think that's when the speeding even goes worse. And outside term times, you do have a rat run. When the Crawley Road is busy, you've got that rat run. So just bear in mind that when we put them on Durham Road, you'll probably find that everybody will be shooting around Norfolk Road and back around. It's almost self-defeating, but we will put your road on there. But just bear that in mind. And also, on some people will lose some parking where the humps go in. You can't park on the humps because we have that circle. So just bear that in mind. It's unintended consequences, but I don't want a second petition just like the one before, where we need to just be mindful. Thank you.
Okay, so we agreed that it goes into the capital programme. Okay, all agreed then. Thank you very much. That being the end of the meeting, thank you very much. And now